what's going on? This is Micah just checking in. Typically I wait a week before I do like an update, but I actually wanted to cover a topic within the mix of my update with my current training and my current weight and what macros are planned moving forward. So I'll give you a quick update on that, and then I want to go into the topic at hand, which is how tracking food got me to explore other foods and how it's changed the game for me moving forward in the natural bodybuilding world. So, and finding balance. So number one, my update, I'm about 165 pounds as far as my current weight. I stepped on stage around 153, 154, so I've gained about 9-10 pounds within the past, leading into my 6 weeks into the off season. Current macros are 500 gram carb, 200 gram protons, and about 40 to 45 grams of fiber per day, and then my fat grams are around 75 grams. I tend to give myself like a 5-gram variance, especially during the weekends, making sure that I'm able to be a little bit more flexible, but I like to play around with ranges just so that it's the off season and I got to get bigger. So that's my current weight. Feeling pretty good about that. Training is still going really strong. I'm doing a 6-day training split, so 3 days, the first Monday through Wednesday. I'm doing more moderate repetitions, moderate volume. I'm not doing anything super heavy, kind of keeping my reps around 8 to 10, and just maximizing those lifts by full range of motion, mind-muscle connection, slow controlled movements. And then towards the end of the week, I tend to do a 12 to 15 range, even up to the 20 to 30 range as far as volume is concerned. I tend to just really hit hypertrophy, really try to fatigue the muscle as much as possible, really trying to stay away from really heavy lifting, just so that it gives my joints some time to recover from the way that I was training before. And also I've been able to see some different changes within my physique just by the fact of putting more emphasis on control, slow movements, and rep cadence, and just rest periods being shorter. So that's been really helpful, and my joints are feeling a lot better. As far as that's concerned, my muscles are sore, but the joints aren't. So that's really where I'm at with that. So currently, with my macros, I'm probably going to keep them pretty consistent. I might add a refeed day every 7 to 10 days, just so that I don't have to eat a lot more than what I'm already doing throughout the week. I'm already feeling like it's too much, as far as having to eat so many calories, and it's really doing all that planning is awesome because I get to eat, but at the same time it's becoming more of a nightmare because of all the things I have to take to work and make sure that I'm always well supplied. And so me trying to add any more food into the mix of things is really gonna make it more time consuming. So that's the plan moving forward. Possibly add a refeed day every 7 to 10 days, just so that I can up my calories. So I'll talk about that more as I dive into what that macro breakdown would be. But I really want to talk about food tracking specifically, and how that's changed the game for me moving forward within bodybuilding specifically. Or this may be helpful for other people that are looking to lose weight, gain weight, gain muscle, lose body fat. But for me, when I first started looking into bodybuilding, I knew the plan was to get big, I had to eat a lot. And to lose weight, to get into the cutting phase, I needed to drop my calories. And I never tracked. I basically stuck to the bro foods: chicken, fish, and sweet potato, leafy greens, green vegetables, um, and yams, brown rice, banana, like oatmeal, egg whites. I mean, the list was pretty short. I mean, I could probably count all the foods that I could eat in 10, on my two hands. And so I was pretty limited. I could get really shredded and throughout the process of a contest prep, but when I was getting bigger, I tended to, I knew I could eat a lot more, and I knew I picked up body fat along the way, so I wasn't doing it right. But I never really knew what my baseline was with food intake. And so I knew I had to just eat less to cut for a show, and I knew I had to gain weight. I just needed to eat more. But I found that, I was really restrictive. I could only eat so much. With my bro foods, and I was so limited, so restricted, that it was April of 2013. I spoke to a lot of people that I was competing with at the Natural Cascades, and they were all telling me about tracking food and flexible dieting and living within the macros. I was like, what in the world are you talking about? Like, I come from a health background. I was in the dietetics world. I was in a clinical setting. I've been in the health field for 7.5 years, and I knew the concept of macros, and I knew the breakdown of that, but I never thought to put percentages to it, like specifically for me, and never thought to just track all my food and so and start doing all that. And that seemed to, I was hearing what they were eating. I'm like, wow, you got to eat that, and you got to eat that, and they're like, yeah, if you track it, if you know where your breakdown is, you can be a little bit more flexible, you can have a lot more variety. And I was like, man, this is sounding good, better and better with each person I was talking to about it. And so I decided, let's go ahead and start tracking my food. I'm not changing anything, I'm just tracking it. I'm in the off season now, no more shows, and I want to build muscle. Like, that's the major critique that I got every single time, was get bigger, get more muscle density, get thickness, overall size. So breaking these Asian genes, I decided, hey, let's go ahead and take a different approach. I need more sustainability. I was actually thinking I was going to quit bodybuilding because I would get into a position where I can get lean, but in that process I was doing, a lot of cardio. I was eating a lot less than what I probably should have been, and I was doing low carb, and my body just was shutting down, and I'd get really irritable, especially towards my family, my wife specifically, and it just wasn't, that's not my thing. Like, I want to be able to have that balance. And so I was willing to give up bodybuilding and still live a life, healthy lifestyle, but I wanted sustainability. And so I started tracking my foods, and lo and behold, I found out, like, wow, I was getting close to 100 grams of fat a day. I was getting a little over 400 grams of carbs. Protein was about 240 grams, 250 sometimes. So it's about a little over 2.5 grams per pound. And I was like, man, like, I'm eating all this food, and I just didn't know percentages. I was like, okay, well, this is my starting point. Let's go ahead and play around with the numbers. And so, and the nice thing about me coming from a background of just having those 10 foods was that it was consistency. So I didn't have to track crazy, weeks on end to figure out what the trend was. I tended to eat the same foods every day, and hence the reasoning behind wanting variety. So once I decided I had to break down where I was at. I wanted to figure out, okay, am I currently gaining weight? Am I losing weight? Or am I maintaining weight? And I think, at that time I was actually putting on weight at a pretty slow rate, so it wasn't anything too alarming. So I kept everything the same. And so the interesting part was, as I went more into like deciding to do another show, figuring out, oh well, okay, I need 20 weeks at least for my first show in April. And so I decided, okay, so now that I know my macro breakdown of, you know, carbs, proteins, and fats, let's go ahead and start play around with dropping some of those macronutrients. And I even dropped protein, just so that, you know, it gave a little relief on my wallet. And I really didn't need that much protein, you know, at the time. But I can talk more about protein intake later on. But basically, I started chipping away slowly but surely. And once I knew, you know, the breakdown, how my body responded to each drop, you know, it gave me more of an idea of like how to adjust, where to make changes, as I got deeper and deeper into my contest prep. And you know, once I knew the breakdown, I actually was able to be a lot more exploratory. So I went to the grocery store. I was like, okay, wow, like I really feel like having a little bit more, you know, more peanut butter, or more, like I want a taco. Like I want, you know, I want this, I want that. So I would look at the labels, I would look it up on MyFitnessPal, and I would make up these recipes, and I would fit them in there, and then everything else I would rearrange into my daily intake around that specific food that I was like kind of craving a little bit. And so that tended to open up my eyes of variety. And I was like, man, this is the golden ticket. Like, I get to have variety. I feel like a human being. I can actually go out with my family because I know what the breakdown is of my foods. I can actually do substitutions. I can actually eat at my family's house some of the times. You know, I can go out with my wife, and she doesn't just have to eat by herself and go takeout, but I can actually sit there in the restaurant and know how to order to make things work within my dieting. Now granted, it does get difficult as you get closer to the, you know, getting on stage, because your macros are pretty low, and you know, you aren't able to fit in a lot of things, so it becomes a little bit more difficult. But I'll be honest with you, I was able to fit in a lot of different foods all the way to the day before contest, you know, stage, being on the stage. Just by the fact of me tracking and knowing how my body responded to different foods and, you know, different macronutrient breakdowns. And it's been through trial and error, but for me, I found a lot more life balance with knowing where my macros are, knowing where my my fats, proteins, and carbohydrates and fiber. And you know, because of that, I've gotten a lot more life balance, and I got pretty shredded without doing a lot of cardio in the process. I wasn't overtraining, I wasn't killing myself just to make progress and feeling like I had to play catch up. And you know, so that's just my back end, my backstory of like how tracking has really changed the game for me. Moving forward, I couldn't ever think about not tracking food and weighing things out and just having a deeper understanding of how much more variety I have and how much more variety I'm going to have, because I'm able to explore, I'm able to challenge basically my knowledge that I received in college about health and exercise and nutrition. You know, the typical guidelines, they don't really apply to some respect, and me being able to kind of push the limits of what I can do has really opened my eyes and how I can approach it differently and still have life balance and still pursue a productive, progressive bodybuilding lifestyle. So that would be my go-to. Just as an introductory, I'm probably going to do like another video on actual macronutrient breakdown and how I came up with my individual breakdown and how I'm progressing, how I add in calories, how I take away calories as I'm, you know, in the off season and then leading into a contest prep and what that looks like. But if you're looking to you know, either gain muscle or lose fat or maintain, the most important thing that you can do is know where you're coming from, know where your story is, your baseline. So track a typical day, an ideal day, track a day that's out of sorts, and track a weekend, because we all know weekends we go YOLO, and we have a lot of events during the weekend. We tend to have a lot of social gatherings, family events, you name it, we have it. So tracking one of those days, and those days might be really high, but the fact is you need to know where your trends are, to know where you're going. If you know your baseline, you can play around with the numbers, even the actual breakdown of what your carbs, proteins, and fats are. And depending on if you have health conditions, you know, if you're watching other micronutrient type things like sodium, potassium, other potential things that have to deal with your health, then by all means track those as well. But for me, I just track the protein, carbs, and fats, fiber intake. Also, I track sodium and potassium, just because my blood pressure tends to dip a lot, especially during contest prep. So I definitely have to watch those macros in order to help out with balance. And so that's just my introductory video of how how my perspective has changed with just by the simple fact of tracking food. It's a simple concept. It takes a little bit to get used to, but the idea is so helpful, and it's really changed the game on how I am going to be able to have longevity in this sport and have a lot more life balance with my family and my wife especially, because they're so supportive, and it's only fair for me to make every attempt possible to have that balance with them and make that same effort that they're making for me. So I'm going to do another series on how that how I came up with my breakdown, how you can probably come up with your own breakdown and play around with the numbers and just be adventurous with it. But for me, I could never go away from not tracking my food or not having an understanding of where things are, so that I can make continual progress. Other than that, leave comments, leave suggestions on the comment box. Let me know like what I can do, or suggestions for other things, for upcoming videos, so that I can share my story, my journey, for you folks. But I appreciate your time. Thanks for checking in, and stay tuned. Bye bye.